How did we end up with such abundance and nutrition and tastiness? Let's find out. My name is John Simzak, and this is the Driveway Garden, no dig container gardening. We're October 10th, about 11 in the morning. It's pretty cloudy out. So we have a main question that keeps coming to us already, and that is, which method do I use to compost? There's so many ideas and variations. Well, today I'm going to show you what I do, and we'll talk about a few other methods as well. But to start with, we're going to just show you what goes in it. Let's take a look. And we got good old kitchen scraps, so we can just pour that out, and there's some old radish, and there's paper towels, napkins, chips, popcorn, coffee filters, and coffee, which coffee is a nitrogen. We talk about brown and green. Green is the nitrogen sources, brown are the carbon sources. So coffee is actually a green, even though it's brown. And also like cardboard, good carbon source. We got the cores from toilet paper rolls. I went down on the edge of my woods where we've been dumping leaves for many years, and I picked some of that stuff up, and some of it's well decomposed and it's at various stages. There's also grass stems from my ornamental grass, my zebra grass. We have eggs here, and so I just hold on to these for a few days and collect them because they dry out nice, and then you can just crumble them up and scatter them around. My wife made applesauce this morning. We also have some triple shredded hardwood here, chips. And you can see it's very well decomposed as well. But I like getting in this form, and some bigger pieces are okay. They'll mostly break down. And if they don't, and I find them when I'm doing my mixes or putting new compost on top, sometimes I'll fish these out and just recycle them again through the compost. But this works really well, and it also creates some good aeration having some of those chunks in there. I also, and what I found out is you got to scrounge a little bit sometime to get what you need if you got a bigger garden. And so I go to a bakery, and let's get my scoop here. And there's coffee in here, muffins, and Brandon, you want a muffin?
I'm good.
Okay, all right. Anyway, so there's muffins. I get cookies too, so sometimes I call it my cookie and muffin compost. But this is going to be sugars, extreme carbs right here, and this really helps heat it up. And then we got all the coffee with it as well. So that's a good way to heat up a pile. We got some other various weeds. We won't go through much, but like this is a seed head only, but that's a brown now. And then here's a seed head that's fairly green. If it's real stocky, like this tomato plant I just harvested or took down, that's getting pretty strong too. So there's a brown in here as well. That might be more brown than green actually right now. We have this right here. This is a weed from my hill. And this is in a potato family there. And for some reason the name escapes me right now. But this decomposes really well.
Pokeweed, right?
Well, no, it's a different name, but that's okay. This is not edible. I mean, actually it's dangerous to animals and humans to eat, but it composts fine. It breaks down into goodness. It's not a problem. Also, you can get rid of vicious things like weedy English ivy. And that you definitely want to thermal compost. I'll break this up a little. I'll throw this under a lawnmower. But this is going to be mostly brown, but it's also a good way for me to continue to get rid of it. I also have some various types of trees that'll grow on my hill and back. And yeah, there's 2 or 3 different types, but I'll chop these down when they're small, and I'll also throw that under the lawnmower. But that's going to be brown and green as well. And we'll show you one last item here. Here's a pepper plant that is finished. And so this is pretty stemmy. You can see it's brown down here, but this is going to be a fair amount of brown here, but you got brown and green. And what we'll do is I'll cut it off just below the soil level because I want to leave the roots in there because there's a lot of goodness in those roots. And either I'll plant back directly in the pot or I'll actually put it on the compost pile. Here, let's get an idea what this looks like in here. And you can see why I put it on the compost pile. Because look, it's all roots. It takes a little bit to break up, but that also works really well when I break this up to go in a soil mix. Very good thing to add. So here's some ideas, but let's go look at a finished compost. So here we are at the compost pile, the finished compost pile that is. I started this in April, and we're gonna take this right off, get a look at it, and look at that beautiful stuff here. So let's get a smell of this. Yeah, it's got a sweet, earthy smell. Nothing bad to it at all as far as the smell. And remember all the stuff we looked at on the driveway? There it is. It's like magic. You know, that's what all the banana peels and kitchen scraps and all the things we put in there are now. So this is ready to go. I started this, like I said, in about mid-April, so it's about 6 months. And this is, we can apply this today if we wanted, but I'll wait till November. I just like to wait until later. And then when it goes through the winter months, if there's any chunks or any bigger pieces in there, winter tends to settle all that down. What do you think about how this looks, Brandon?
You know, it's a little chunkier than I'm used to planting stuff in. Doesn't quite look like
Okay.
the stuff from the garden store.
All right, well that's a good comment. Now, because the things we get from the garden store, of course, are, you know, in proportion and all nice and even and clean looking, and that's fine. But also, many of those soils are essentially sterile as far as biological activity goes. You may get a fertilizer charge, but you aren't going to get the beneficials that will help release the nutrient in the best way. So that's what you're missing with that. But when I put this on, it all goes on top anyway. So even if it is chunkier or bigger bits like this is from a ornamental grass, and it's breaking up real nice, that's just fine. And if there's even some wood in there, bigger pieces of wood, typically I'll get those and I'll run them through again if I find them while I'm retopping my containers. But that's just fine on top of the soil as well. That'll just continue to break down. You just don't want that underneath the plant. It takes a lot of nitrogen to consume that, and if it's under the plant with the roots, it'll focus on this and kind of rob from the plant. But this is all going on top. So this is ready to go. About mid-November or so, I'll put that on. But let's take a look at my new compost pile. And it's saying 140.5 right now. Yeah, there we go. And so that's good. We need at least 131 degrees and for 3 days to kill weed seeds and any of the bad biology that might be in there. So let's take a look at this. Now, yesterday I cut my lawn, and that feels nice and warm. I can feel it really nice right now. And so what I do when I'm cut my lawn or take down part of my garden for the green things, I make sure it goes on right away because it has a lot of moisture in it because I never water this. So one of the questions I get is, do you need the water? Well, I think you probably could do even smaller bins in a way where you wouldn't need to water. Just get your green materials on right away so all the moisture that's in there goes onto your heap. Also, the nitrogen sources, or the green, is what the bacteria really takes off on, and that's what creates the heat. So that'll give you plenty of moisture, so you don't have to take a special time to water. Also, we talked about adding different plants, like your stemmy things, the hardwood chips, excuse me, and the toilet cores, stuff like that. You can get even larger parts of my tomato plants that go in, and the stems create air spaces. And so it's the way you use your materials also to create those air spaces. I'll take egg cartons, and I won't break them up at all. I'll just lay them in and throw grass or whatever over it. Same with some of the cardboard things. I do rip some of this up and mix it in as well at times. And that also helps create some spaces. And those are your carbon sources. So when I cut the grass yesterday, you can see in here, there's plenty of leaves in there as well. So I really didn't add any extra brown to this layer. I also have some pine needles in there. One thing I will say about pine needles, make sure they go in brown. If they go in green, they have terpenes in them, and they tend to have a negative effect on the pile. But brown is fine. I've never had a problem, and I've been using those all along. So the way to keep moisture is get your green items in right away. Also add hardwood and stems and the egg cartons and things like that to create air spaces. So you won't have to turn it. I turned this once. And what it does is you have a lot less to do, especially as your garden gets bigger. I stay pretty busy with it. So I like to try to reduce some of the time that it takes to produce some of these different things. So there are a couple people where there's some great information you can get as well, some really detailed information. And Elaine Ingham, who has done this over 50 years, is kind of the mother of soil biology. And but they do it for a different purpose. If you look at her information, they're turning it often, adding water. They're doing other things to make that compost quicker. And the reason they want to make it quicker is because they then use it for tea. They make a compost tea, and there's some other things you do to create that tea, and we'll talk about it on another video. But that way they can take the liquid form with all the biology in it and inoculate the soil. And because sometimes it's 1,000-acre farms or whatever. So they use that method. So people see that and go, whoa, should I do it that way or should I do it this way? Well, I was in July in Somerset, England, and I was with Charles Dowding there at Home Acres. And by the way, great guy. He's as happy as in real life as he is on film. So it was a really enjoyable time. But I watched some of his piles would even get really hot, but like up to 170 sometime, which is a little hot. You can lose some fungal things there, and keep about 160 is good, below 160. But that would get really hot. And he only turned it once as well. And he has bigger bins. I think they're about 7 by 7. Mine are about 4.5 by 4.5. And the proof is in the pudding. He has an incredible garden. He puts down the compost once a year, about an inch. That's it. There's no pesticides, there's no fertilizer, and it works beautifully. Now, there's variations also as I watched many videos just to get an idea what was going on with explanations of composting. And there are different ways and different methods, some different things, but they'll work. You don't have to cover it, or you can cover it. You don't have to water it, but if you do water it sometimes, it isn't going to hurt either. You just don't want to get it real wet. You got to keep it aerated then. Then you might have to turn more. So there's variations all along the way. I saw so many, but don't worry. These things will work on all these different methods and things in between. Even as simple as piling a bunch of stuff on the ground, it'll work. Mimic nature. That's all nature does. So we're going to get all of our goodness there, and this is the engine of the garden. This is what makes it work and move and provides the goodness to have deliciousness and nutrition. And if you have just 2 or 3 pots or over 100 like I do, there is a way, and there are sources to get good compost and get help with that. And in future videos, we'll show you those things, and we will get you some good information there. But there are ways, and that's our goal too. Even if you have 2 pots, we want to help you grow in the most nutritious way. And it's really kind of fun too. This compost pile becomes kind of like a pet. It's amazing how much you get into it and how much more you are efficient and conservative with how you use things or make use of things. And that's the other thing I like about it too. It's very environmental. So, but thank you for watching, and make sure you hit the like and subscribe. This is our first video. Help us get going, and we're going to have a lot of fun with this, I think. And we have a lot of things planned already. We're going to probably post about 1 video every 2 weeks at this point as we develop and get better at this. And so if you would look for that, and of course any comments are welcome. And we will see you again in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for watching.